Today's session is going to be epically magic because I'm here with Scott, who was a client of mine and who I'm so excited about having on. Scott, I haven't told you this, but it's really funny that I don't know, probably a year and a half ago, I kept trying to get you on the podcast,
Mm.
but for some reason, the timing of it wasn't right. And now it's the perfect timing because so much has shifted since we last spoke. So I want you to just get us started with sharing a little bit about who you are, how we came to know each other, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm grateful for this timing. So thank you for having me on. I do think that now is such a fun time to chat because of the exploration that we were talking about before this, which would be really great. So what I do is I help people, much like your work, it's just a little different, but agrees on the same principles, is that I help people really dive deep into their healing and looking for inner peace and that wholeness, that coming back to home almost. And that's really been my focus. And then we do law of attraction, manifestation stuff too. But it becomes a parallel. Yes, let's get the results, but let's do the trauma healing so that you feel so great in your skin, in your body every day. Yeah. And so that's what I've been helping clients with very deeply now. And I came across your work, geez, it had to be what, 2.5 years ago now, somewhere around there, a couple of years ago. And I was looking for a leader who could help lead me to an inner world beyond the usual personal development and beyond the marketing structure strategy. Because as you talk about so well in your work, no matter how many strategies you do, if you're not doing the inner work, the energetics part, it just doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. And so my partner at the time, I think you were on Catherine's podcast, right? And she's like, you got to listen to this. So I listened to that and I was like, I want to work with Makhosi. I don't know what it is. I know she has great energy on the podcast, but I'm like, that work I'm ready for. And that's how I was like, let's just do it. Let's figure it out and jumped right in. So
Yeah. I I absolutely have loved working with you because number 1, you just bring this incredible calm energy, and also just in general working with men has a very different flavor that I really love and enjoy. It's this ability to, once you have clarity, this is what I would see with you every single session, is you would just like get this clarity. Taking action was never really a challenge for you. It was that finding alignment piece that you had come to really value, that, hey, I don't want to just be doing stuff to just be doing stuff. I want to know how to tap into what's really aligned for me. And so I want to hear all about how, like, following the path of alignment, what's come about in your reality since walking this different path, since embodying this different way of being.
I think especially for men right now, it's very confusing because, or women that have a really good masculine ambition side of them. Because how do I balance being a great implementer and taking action, but still remaining in this deeper alignment and higher level identity? And so when I was getting to this place where I felt like the biggest challenge in my life was how do I balance so that I'm seeing the improvements in my life? And so when I started down this journey, it started to become a really difficult one because there was a part of me I kept rejecting. I kept rejecting that energetic side, that intuitive ability, that side that's the invisible side, right? The side that we can't see. I knew it was there. I taught on it. I've used it in manifestation style, but for realignment of my identity and who I wasn't owning that all the way. I could feel it. It was like the feeling of an emptiness. Like you say so much too, like you can achieve so much, but then there's something missing still. You have a great income or you have the business at where you want. And so when I was going down this path and starting to integrate these puzzle pieces and started to really open my mind to it, I started to feel like I remembered what this world was more so than what people see it as. I started to see it more as like this sacred simulation. I could see color more, if that makes sense. visibly, but I'm so present in my body now that I can see more clearly and I can listen better. So the intuitive nudges that I needed for the business are there, and they always were there, but I was just blocking them, right? I just didn't want to listen all the way. And so my life feels more open. My heart feels more open. It feels like my spaciousness is more open. I'm safe being visible more and all those good things that we talk so much in the beginning, right? Like fear of visibility, like you got to jump right into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I've worked with so many amazing manifestation experts themselves. And one of the things I've seen lacking in the energetic space as well as the business spaces is that there are two sides to manifestation. There's essentially it's the same laws, but it's really a difference in who is leading, right? Often when we are trying to manifest success, and let me be clear, this is not saying that one is better or worse than the other. Both of them are useful at different times and for different things. But when we're manifesting, often we know what we want, right? We know what we want. We're like, I want to hit a six-figure launch, or I want to attract 25,000 followers on Instagram, right? We kind of have this idea of what it is that we want, and then we are aligning our energetics to create that reality. However, there's this other side where you start to focus instead of the thing that you want to have. Instead, you're focused on who am I being right now, right? It's still the same principle, but instead you're looking at what is present right now. Where are my where are my challenges? Where am I resisting certain aspects of myself that need to be integrated in order for me to walk fully in my calling, in who I'm here to be in this world? And it requires it's such a challenge because it does require this surrendering of the ego, surrendering of the identity. Like who have you discovered yourself to be on this journey that you weren't aware of?
Yeah. Yeah. These euphorics, I think, approaching it that way is so different than the norm. And I think that's why it's so powerful too, because you're approaching in a way that the identity starts to form, right? So the identity I started to discover is this medicine man. Is the best label for it, I think. That, there's different archetypes of the awakened masculinity, awakened feminine side, but the medicine side or the shaman side or whatever you want to call that was what I was constantly rejecting. And so I've found my identity going more towards like some moments in the day, I'm like, I don't care about any of this. I would rather just go into the jungle and do some medicine and be in nature. Like, okay, maybe that's not the best thing to do right this moment. But, there's that pull towards it. So I answer that more. It's okay. Maybe I'm not going to do that for a week, but let me go ahead and do that for a couple hours today. And then let me schedule my next trip to Costa Rica or whatever it's going to be. And that identity that I've been discovering and actually accepting and owning has just felt like fulfillment, a feeling of wholeness, feeling like I'm on a higher path that I felt like I knew, but I didn't have clear. And I thought it was in business achievement. And that's important. But this other level is so much more exciting than if I was 10 times the business. And that's so important, but this is so much more important right now.
Yeah. What I love about this that I'm hearing from you and resonate with is that it's not that the business achievement and the goals and the things that you want to manifest don't matter anymore. It's that they now are the vehicle through which you get to operate in your calling, right?
Yeah.
Versus I have to become somebody else to achieve this next level of business success. It's no, actually, I get to be more me. The game gets to be, how can I express and amplify more of who I truly am and release the limited ways of being that are keeping me from that
Mm,
fullest expression.
yeah.
So what were some of the limitations that you like had placed on yourself that kept you from embodying and integrating this medicine man archetype?
Yeah. Well, one of the limitations I think was literally just believing that ambition wasn't more important, or stop believing in ambition being more important than everything else. Because that's what I started my business as, was like go, go, structure, ambition. I really believed, like that Western society thing, that achievement was what you identify with. And if you're not achieving or becoming known or doing something that's celebrated, that you're less than somehow in society. And I probably knew that at conscious level, but subconsciously it was still there. So I had to let go of that belief, number one. And a second belief I really think that was holding me back was the idea that I can be in touch with the invisible side and have everybody else have an opinion that might oppose that, and it's completely fine. Right. So if they're like, Scott's going off the rails, I don't know what he's doing, right? It's okay for me to have people around me, or what I perceive people seeing me as a society, and it's completely okay. And seeing it for, if they're rejecting me, it's because they're rejecting that same part that I'm now owning. And no wonder why they're not trusting and supporting my path in that way. And so being able to own and shift those beliefs were huge into actually accepting and walking this path more, for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh my gosh. These are really important limitations that I see, especially for men. There are, of course, these overlaps, but I think the way that we're conditioned based on the gender that we identify as growing up really does play a big role in who we think that we are and who we think we have to be. And so I see it's more common in men who are high achieving to have this over identification with their success or with how much they can provide or achieve in this world. And it's not a problem until it becomes a problem, right? Until that success is shaken. Oh, you put out an offer and no one buys, or you sell your company. And even though you had all of this success, now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm back at square one all over again. And that can jeopardize your entire sense of self. And it can be a really great catalyst for you to go on this self discovery. But I'm really glad that you've been able to go on that journey before having to have, everything just like collapse on you or sell a company or any of these like major things happen.
Yeah. One thing did collapse, but it wasn't business. It was my relationship. So we had consciously uncoupled in December-ish of this past year. So about 6 months ago now. And that was such a major thing that occurred that in January, end of December, January, I was like, there's something way bigger here for me. And I could feel that all parts of me were able to surrender in that moment because it was so huge. So I think it was already in that process. And thank goodness, I didn't have to be in the business sense or in a catastrophic things happening, because it was already kind of going towards that way of just not maybe working, or maybe in our best interest to keep going. But when that happened, it rocked my world so much, then things started to even open up. Now, before that, I mean, that was just 6 months ago, but well before that, like a year ago, what started to really open up for me was not anything crumbling, but actually just having these moments throughout the day where I'd have this interesting paranoia feeling. And I had this paranoia feeling thinking it was bad at first, but I'm like, wait a second, let's see what this is. And this paranoia feeling, I looked into it more just by really listening in. And I would have these mysterious, like I'd be walking through the hallway of just like walking to go to the kitchen, and I'd have this like disorienting moment where I'd feel like I don't have a grip on reality. I have no idea what's going on in my life. And there was no cause for that I could see externally. Everything was great. Everyone looking in outside in would be like, everything's so put together. Like, what's going on? But I had these like moments, and it was recurring almost every other day it became. And it was only for like a minute, but I would just like completely stop life, and I would have these like, okay, where am I? Right. And then come back to existence. And those moments, the more I started to listen into them, the more they were speaking to me that you're about to shift, if you're willing to, into a place that is going to be much more evolved or higher where I'm wanting to go internally. But there's a part of me that's hanging on. And so it started like that, no crumbling, no collapsing. But that
Hmm.
was, I'd say, the starting point like a year and a half ago, a year ago.
Yeah. Ooh, thank you for sharing that because I'm actually in the process of mapping out. I don't have a name for it yet, but it is essentially the rites of passage for a new paradigm leader. And it's this culmination of the work that I've been doing with so many top leaders and starting to put frameworks and map out what these different phases are. And one of the things that I notice is, the soul starts to bring about these it's like first a whisper, right? And then it gets louder, louder, louder until something major shifts in your reality. And I love that you are bringing clarity that for you it wasn't in business. I've also seen so another client that um, I've done an interview with, Kyle shared how his started with like a health scare that he ended up in the hospital, and when he reflected, if you looked back a couple years before, there was this, like, anxiety that actually started to show up, and then it manifested as burnout, but he's just like, "Oh, I've gotta keep going, I've gotta keep pushing through," and then eventually had this collapse. So, share with me a little bit about since those moments, having that revelation, what did you start seeking as the solution? Because a lot of people would maybe feel this paranoia or this just like disorientation, feeling like you are in this world, but not really here in this world, right? Where did you even go or what solutions did you think were going to help you with that?
I was actually quite lost in that because I didn't really it was so hard to understand because paranoia, like it sounds bad in some sort of way, but it was such a blessing. And it was like, what is going on? And it's so hard. And for anybody listening in, that whisper, sometimes you don't know what's going on, and that's okay. And that's what I tried to really emphasize. That was a tool of just pure acceptance. This is here for a good reason, and it will reveal itself over time. And it did. I believe it always will if you're in that stance, unless you're pushing it away, right, and protecting yourself. So that was one tool. It's just pure acceptance. It's here. Don't battle it. Don't try and push it. Don't resist it. Let me understand it the best I can. And then one thing I would do is every time that came up, even if I couldn't in that moment, I was doing something, I was in the middle of something. I remember even happening during a group call when I was coaching my clients. I had this moment, but you're in a service. You're like, well, I should keep going here. And so that night or the next day, I would sit there and journal and just really ask. I would close my eyes and ask that part, what are you needing? Why are you here? Who are you? If you're somebody that's a voice, and what are you here to teach me? And one of those things that came through teaching wise was to loosen your grip on what you think reality is. And so the other big catalyst that came in was my partner at the time. She really encouraged me and giving credit to her for stepping into more awakened men's work. And that was something that was lagging a little bit inside my identity overall. And when I started to step into that container of awakened men's work, there was a lot of fears. There was a lot of, um, I was very secure, but it was more, I felt like this uncomfortability around some of the container of that for some reason. So it was just unsafety that was going on somehow in my subconscious. But I started to step into that work as well. And all three of those together, week by week, month by month, it started to kind of reveal itself. And it started to be more of a, when this thing happens, it's kind of nice. I kind of actually want it to happen because it started to feel like my reality was shifting. So it became a little scary thing at first, and then it became a blessing. It became something I was looking forward to. And that's kind of like how I alchemized into something that I could use, I think, all the way.
Have you ever experienced, and maybe you're experiencing this now, your own personal or spiritual evolution moving at a faster pace than you feel like your business model, your work, your clientele can contain or keep up with?
Yes. I've had that feeling for like the last 6 months to 8 months, around there, but I've never really pinpointed it in those words. So I'm happy you're actually bringing this up because there's a lot of points even throughout my day. I feel like I'm well past all this, or I'm like ready for something really doing this or bigger, but it feels like there's this slowness to catch up on some fronts. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That also is, one of the things that I see people experience when they come back from plant medicine in particular, that when you experience a plant medicine ceremony and you gain insight into more of who you're here to be and more of, the gifts that are trying to come through. Often what's really a hard thing to just wrap your mind around is how that's going to work in your current business. And I see so many people just come back and just like burn it all to the ground and I'm
Yeah.
going to start over and rebuild in alignment. And often that doesn't work because you haven't fully gotten the clarity on what alignment looks like. It's something that, like you're saying, unfolds over time. And so one of the key aspects is starting to see how the empire that you've built can evolve with you or can evolve in such a way where you can release it, but not have to go through these like crazy high highs and massive dip lows, crash, burn it all down.
Yeah. I had that exact feeling after my Iboga ceremonies recently because during the ceremony, I got massive clarity on like what the next 10, 15 years could even look like. And it's something that I would have never guessed ever, like that I was going to go down that path, but it feels home. It feels right. And so when I came back, it was like, how am I going to integrate this? What am I going to do? And it felt like in that moment I should rearrange everything. But then when I was really sat with it, it was like, but I don't think that's the most empowering way because what's I can build off what's already been done in the last 9 years of me doing this. So it took a different approach of like, how can it be an and conversation? Yes, let me step into my evolving process, but let me build off of the things that I've created so far and what that evolution would look like. I think that's so important that you're hitting on that for so many people, whether it's plant medicine or anything else, when you have these breakthroughs, not to just chuck it all away, but to really say, where's my evolving identity? What can I step into? And that was very important for me to realize.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me on this journey because my spiritual awakening in this way, because I had an awakening to the spirit world, but this is a very different part of the same journey, I would say. It's really that stepping into your sovereignty, who you are really called to be in this world. And whenever plant medicine just was not a part of my process, I didn't experience entheogenic plant medicine until after I completed initiation, actually. But I had this experience of feeling like that part of me needs to die. And that is part of the process, but it's really so that you can integrate into wholeness. It's that we want to start to bring on board certain parts of ourselves that need to be expressed on this plane, in our work, in our interactions. But what we did before and who we were isn't wasted. Not at all. In fact, a lot of it was part of your becoming and is useful for where you're going. And I personally didn't have anyone who was guiding me through that process. And so I did burn down a successful business and, I survived. I just like did marketing behind the scenes for various small businesses and nonprofits while I like tried to figure it out. However, I do think about how different things could have been if I had allowed for some evolution, but many people procrastinate or like keep pushing off the evolution until they have no choice.
Hmm.
And then it feels really urgent. Like I must change everything now. Got to make it happen now.
Right.
If you don't mind me asking, what really catalyzed the unconscious or your conscious uncoupling is what I meant to
Mm.
say. Do you feel like it was something that was kind of always coming or was it catalyzed by these moments of paranoia slash I'm going to call it clarity of soul misalignment that was coming in to your field?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great wording for it. Yeah, absolutely. We could dive into that because I think it's so important that even as we're very ambitious individuals and we're going towards these business goals, like what about all the other areas of life and how they're all entangled together in some sort of way. And so our dynamic, we were together for 5 years, and there was what I would call the first 3 years was at least like all the trauma that you can think of that was served up from our childhoods, all going at it constantly. And every week, our relationship didn't become a relationship, it became a trauma healing ground. And that's like, that was our main thing that happened during the first, kind of part there. And I would say when it came towards that last bit, it was really the catalyst was both of us stepping into our truths as much as possible. And there was a part on my side I was blocking, and that's going back to where I was, that energetic medicine man part of me that I was blocking out, she wanted more of, and vice versa on a couple of things on my side. And so it also became a little bit of some compatibility, but also some misalignment that was created. And so when we got to that stage, it was so difficult, but I knew in awareness that something really importantly big is about to happen to the both of us. And so it became like a spiritual volcano, not in a bad way between us, but like how the whole world just started to open up for the both of us and what we're stepping into from that place. And we ended up talking maybe around February time period after we consciously uncoupled, which was one of the deepest spiritual processes I've ever been through because you have built something together and then you're consciously uncoupling. You're in such a loving, kind place with each other that you're able to let go, but from so much love. There's so much joy, tears that come out, but also grief. And when we talked again a little bit later, her life and my life, we both told a couple of things that were going on, and we would have never guessed that we were doing those things in a very empowering way. So it's like a catalyst for us to finally own those parts of ourselves that we were allowing, but also having some maybe incompatibility finally be owned and not living in a fantasy of we hope things change. Well, maybe it's just not the right fit, more so.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that you all are in a good place with that. It's one of the most difficult parts about going on this journey is that when you surrender to the journey, there are no guarantees of what will and won't happen. And I think that keeps so many of us from feeling an ease with that unknown because I love this person or because, I have this idea, this vision of us getting married or us having kids or us, you know, building something together. And when we honor our truth, when we really give ourselves permission to be our full self and also allow space for others to do the same, because often we don't realize that we are holding them in a limited box as well. Ultimately, what comes about is what's aligned, right? I share a little bit around, the first 2 years of my initiation, I really thought my husband and I were not gonna make it. Not only was I a newer mother, so I started initiation, my son was around 1 at that point. I was a newer mother and I was kind of coming out of postpartum, probably depression, but I was never formally diagnosed, but I was crying every single day. So there was something going on. And when I went into initiation, I all of a sudden started getting ideas of what I thought it meant to be spiritual, right? And I'm like, "Oh, I'm on this path. That means you also have to be on this path as my partner in this way, right? It needs to look the way that I'm doing it, or it needs to be as deep as the way that I'm doing it." And I started projecting all of these ideas of who he had to be in order to fit into my life. And also vice versa. Like, we grew up in similar backgrounds, which was something that we resonated on. And here I was going completely counter to that in a way that's very scary for many people. And there's lots of judgment around what it means to be in specifically African spirituality. That's a very hot button topic, and I've had some interesting projections from people around that. And, he was very resistant to me going down this path because he was scared. Who are you becoming? Where am I going to fit in that? Are we going to still be compatible on the other side of it? And it wasn't until I realized that I was holding on to who I thought he had to be, projecting that out. But basically, I was making my inner journey dependent on external circumstances, other people, a relationship, etc. It wasn't until I surrendered that, you know what? It is entirely possible that we might not end up together at any given time. However, I need to honor what's true for me and also give other people permission to honor what's true for them. And when I got into that acceptance, we started clicking again.
Mm.
And I told him we had an argument, and I said, "Listen, you don't have to support me," because I was no longer dependent on someone outside of me to support me even. I said, "The only thing is that you cannot stand in my way,
Mhm.
because if you stand in the way, that's going to become a problem because I'm trying to follow what's true for me and what's aligned." And that made all the difference. His spirituality looks quite different to mine, but we're now able to operate on a much more compatible level, and it doesn't always end up that way. It doesn't. And that doesn't make one way better and another way worse. But it really just ultimately truth is what matters.
Yes. And that was so scary at some point, is owning the truth because you don't know what's going to happen for business, for a relationship, any of it. And but I feel like when you can bypass this, it really be with the scariness, but then really see what it is. Following your truth, it's what you deeply want, and it will lead you towards these puzzle pieces. I think that was a major part of why that had occurred for the both of us in a very deep way. It just allowed us to follow a path that we're now really enjoying. Like, this is me. This is real me. And it's okay if it didn't work out, and we can still love each other tremendously, and we can still support each other and encourage each other. But I don't have to hold on to my vision in the way I think it needs to look. And that was very challenging for me, especially from the masculine side, because you're very vision oriented. And okay, by this age, I'm going to have this amount of kids. I'm going to have this thing going on, right? It's very practical. And that can be a great thing because you're moving towards something that you want to go and you're doing the actions towards it. But I had to learn to let go of some of that and say, well, there's also spirit coming through me in maybe a different way than I expected. And how fun is that too? And trying to balance both of those, I think, were so important. The more you grip onto and attach, you're like, it has to happen. And it's like, well, maybe if I let go, something better will happen.
Yeah, I reflect back on some of the things in my life that I held a very tight grip on the vision of, and now I'm so grateful that they didn't come to pass, right? And I think that all of us have those. Like, we think about an ex that we were with, right? Or we think about a business. Like I think about my meal prep business that lasted all of 2 seconds. And I'm really glad that that didn't work out because
Right.
I would I don't actually genuinely enjoy meal prep. I had just figured out how to do it based off of the circumstances that I was in. It wasn't actually an expression of who I am in this world. And we it's important to have vision to some degree, but it's the attachment to it. It's the holding because if we think about this even from, a more scientific level, our mind can literally only copy what it has seen before. And it's only seen a very small fraction, approximately 1% of reality, of what's possible. But we have this other intelligence that's inside of us that is the superconscious aspect, the soul, the spirit, source, etc. Right? We can access this other intelligence that can access all of the possibilities that we haven't even considered. I would have never said that I was going to become a shaman at
Right.
some point. Like that was so not even as I was in initiation, not in my realm of possibilities, right? So when you let that part take the lead, right? Some really extraordinary magic, like you get to live magic in a way every day, even just like little things. I was sharing some really great insight that just like this aha moment. I was sharing it with my friend, and then all of a sudden, this bald eagle came through. And it was like the perfect confirmation. The symbolic nature of that eagle was the perfect confirmation. And it's like that gets to be your life every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I had, when I was first feeling like I was ready for something big to occur, um, I didn't know even really what Iboga plant medicine was in January. But at the end of December, I was like, I'm going to start allowing this magic to unfold and just see where it takes me. And I started to have these little tiny synchronicities happen. I remember like I was taking a shower, just doing something mundane activity and eating or whatever. I had this thought, reach out to the shaman that I know that I did ayahuasca with. Just see. I didn't really feel called to doing ayahuasca yet again. It's been like 3.5, 4 years. So I reached out, and before I did, I went on her Facebook profile and it said Iboga ceremony upcoming in like 3 weeks or whatever it was. And I knew right when I saw it, I was like, that feels exactly right. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that ceremony, what it's going to do. But it was like that perfect sign that came up and it just felt boom. I knew. It's like that inner knowing, almost kind of like the eagle just flying. It's just like it's there and it's set in. And that's what helped me unfold some of these things is just kind of like letting go and just saying like, let's see where it goes and following those key signs and allowing it to go forward. And that's what led me down, I think, one of the biggest healings that I've ever had in the deepest ways, just because those little synchronicities start to line up and you start to see the flow and how spirit connects one to the other.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to hear because we are kind of catching up. I would love to hear a little bit about, what you are excited for in the future. What is currently unfolding that you can feel, but also maybe have some visionary sense of, the future of what conscious leadership looks like for you, whether that's the intangible or tangible manifestation of that.
Yeah. I've been really attracting a lot of clients who are stepping into healing roles. And I've really noticed like the more, so on our one on ones, we do a lot of deep trauma work where we'll go back to a core memory that's been creating meaning in their life and we'll go and revise that and change it. And so we do that every week and they go through so many healings that they feel so peaceful at the end of it and they feel free. But after like 5, 6 months of that, almost every one of them, not every one of them, but almost every one of them they start talking to me as if they are a healing guide already. They've been doing it for like 20 years, but they've never actually helped anybody technically heal, right? And I tell them right away, like, do you see what you're doing here? Like the light worker that you were already is coming out in these ways because of the experience you've been having in these healing realms. I think you're ready to step into helping others do what you just went through on a journey. And as soon as I mention it, almost all of them are like, that's exactly what I've been feeling, but I didn't know, or I didn't give myself permission because I'm like, "Oh, I can't do that. Scott does it, or Makhosi, or, whoever. And like, I can't do that. Right. And so I've been seeing that I think over the next 10 years, there's going to be a larger wave of people helping other people heal. And it doesn't have to be in the traditional sense. It can be in so many different modalities in so many different ways. And I would just sense that over even like next 20 or 30 years, like there's something, and I know you talk about this so much as well, that like there's some evolution happening where not everyone's going to be conscious necessarily, but there's going to be some leaders in this world that are able to talk about consciousness or talk about awareness, and it's accepted and encouraged rather than the weird person or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, number one, that would be such an exciting world. But
Yeah.
number two, I think it just seems like it's going that way. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, this next 20 years globally is really going to be bringing up an opportunity for us to rewrite the rules. So many of our systems, our patterns, our ways of being and doing things are collapsing, and that can be really scary. And simultaneously, some of us are here to create what that new paradigm looks like in very real ways. So we speak about the consciousness aspect of it, but consciousness creates reality, right? So there are ways, even as you are sharing this, I can start to see this unfolding of maybe a certification process that people are going through. They're able to take this modality or this method into all of these different industries, because what we need to understand, when we bring out, our unhealed parts, it affects everything that we do, right? Whether that's in medicine, education, research, right? Our consciousness is affecting whatever we do, whatever we touch. And so, we're the beauty of, I think, AI is it's going to take off a lot of load on information being important. And instead of information being so important, we're moving into this time where transformation is going to be
Mm,
more important, and be one of those most valuable and sought after things. And there's definitely some people who are just going to completely detach from that realm of possibility, and some are going to just lean in, go all in on that.
yeah, I like that. So the information age translating to transformation age, I
Mhm.
think that's so powerful. And seeing that so much of this transformation and leaning in or leaning out, I think that the more that we just keep an open mind on some of this stuff and say, like, maybe there are unconscious wounds that I'm putting into this marriage relationship, putting into this business, putting into this lifestyle I have. Let me look at it, and just coming at with curiosity, I think is everything. And if we follow that curiosity and that interest, it's kind of like that's where the whisper is sometimes with our spirit, is saying, like, I kind of want to learn more about that, or I want to understand more. And that can be just a fun path to go down because you're sensing maybe I can transform more, but also then I'm going to help the world transform in a higher level. And every person you impact has a ripple effect. So if you help one person, you're really maybe helping 10 because their energy is now different. Their energy is different around those people who says the one thing at the right time for the next person. And I think that that ripple effect is really what creates that huge transformation for many people in volume.
Yeah, I stole this concept from Shannon Graham, who I met on a retreat, but he shared this insight around the ROI, not just being focused on the ROI, return on investment, but the ROI that's the ripple of impact, and
Mm,
being more mindful and conscious of what is the impact that we're making. I come across conversations around legacy and we talk about it as if it's, someday, one day at the end of my life. And the truth is no, legacy's happening right now. Either you're just unconscious of the legacy that you're leaving right now, or you can bring some consciousness to it because our legacy is being written in who we be every single day. And that can be a really incredible, eye opening, awe inspiring moment for expansion when you start to really break down what is the legacy that I'm writing. And I don't know, one of the most powerful practices that has helped me in recognizing this ripple of impact, and it's served me in so many ways. I'll share a business example because it's easy to see that. Early on in the Royal Shaman universe, back then I was doing group coaching for like $200 a month. $200. And I had a client who had this incredible quantum leap, and she went from 33,000 a year, making 33,000 a year, jumped, got a promotion, got a new job all within a year, and then she was making like $75,000 a year. And I was like, that's incredible. Like, that's amazing. And then I paused for a second. And all of a sudden, I started to see her life unfold and this ripple of impact. And I started with her as a singular being. And I thought, okay, that's basically double, more than double for her in a year. What is the ripple of impact of that over 5 years and beyond? I calculated it out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this means she's going to make over $1 million more in her lifetime because of the transformation that we did together. Right. And then let that play out to her partner, to her children, to the people in her community that she was able to interact with and affect. Right. That's the paradigm that we're moving into. That's the scale that we get to play in. It was always there, right? But to me, that's really where we're going to start to see things as being valuable. Right now, we are kind of on the tail end of, seeing value in stuff, seeing value in information. But many of us have come to realize that the value isn't just in stuff. Like, we love a first class flight. And also, we want some meaning on this first class flight.
yes. Yes. And it's so nice to say, okay, I'm sitting in first class and I feel amazing and I feel meaningful and fulfilled. Yeah. Yeah. I think that conversation, having that end conversation and filling life with meaning and remembering that I'm creating ripple effects right now with every door I hold for somebody, for every great gratitude note I send, for every thought I think that is blessing somebody rather than complaining or taking away. And it's basically the sum total of what we're building inside our psyche, and that transfers out to the world. And I love the idea, like you're saying, that it's going to become a playground, that we're all creating this ripple effect in bigger ways and seeing where it takes the world overall.
Yeah. Well, we are winding it down, but I want to give you an opportunity if there's anything else on your heart that you really feel called to share. I
Hmm.
want to give you that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say this whole whisper concept of spirit whispering, try to listen to it immediately and just sit there and journal and ask it before something big happens or before anything starts to really gnaw at you. Really be with it. And it may be uncomfortable, it may be scary, but when you're on the other side, you look at it as like, that was never scary at all. Right? It's like that cave you fear to enter idea, and then you go on the other side and there's like all this treasure and the lights are on in the cave. You're like, oh, this is like a crystal cave. Look how amazing. It was never scary. Everything we're so scared of, it's really never scary. And if you can follow that whisper, it'll take you towards that path. And I really think that if you're having trouble following the whisper, hire Makhosi. because actually being able to be in her container like I was allowed me to start being with that and getting the right guidance energetically and allowing myself to align with it. So that's what I'd say as a concluding note on how important it is to follow that whisper.
I'm just gonna co-sign it. Signed,
That's right.
Scott and Makhosi. So true, so true. Well, where can people find more about you, learn from you, keep up with all of the incredible things that you're bringing out into the world?
Sure. Well, two ways. Number one is I'll go on YouTube or Instagram for any. We do a lot of drawing techniques for law of attraction based. So just to make sure that you're in flow with the results you're wanting. So that would be a good start. And then we also have this cool school group. It's SKOOL school. And it's a membership basically giving you a blueprint and step by step instructions, help you clean out, help get you into that right alignment space. So those are two little easy things you could do right now to start getting yourself into a higher level of alignment.
Well, Scott, it's been amazing having you on. I knew it would be, and I'm really glad that the timing of this worked out perfectly as it always
Yeah.
does. And I'm so excited to, stay connected with you and continue to see how spirit wants to show up and show out in the things that you're bringing out into the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Makhosi, for all the work you do. I really mean it to everybody that, like, the work when I was in your container, it meant everything to me to help me really own this part, initiate that path, and go through the rite of passage. So thank you.
Thank you.